Hello. All right, welcome everybody. My name is Dan Levin, and we're going to have a nutrition seminar. I'm going to do a full intro in a minute, just while we wait for more people to log on, since it is right on the dot 12:30, and people are normally 1 or 2 minutes late. I just want to talk about Renaissance and what we've been doing during these times for our members. So we have a lot going on. For the members that have been going, you've already seen how we have taken over our parking structure, and to have a very expansive and very spread out workout area with a lot of machines, free weights. We have cardio, and with a lot of spacing in between. This has grown considerably since we started, and it's been great. We have a serious hotel cleanup crew that, aside from members and guests wiping everything down before and after using it, we also have staff that are incredibly vigilant and constantly cleaning. Even if nobody's there, they are re-cleaning. You're not going to find a cleaner gym. Also, our uh, we have our restaurant, and our restaurant has a lot of healthy options. And since we're talking about nutrition today, you should consider eating at Renaissance. And whether you eat there, because now we have outdoor seating again, or you want to do take home, whether it's for holidays or regular meals, we have a lot to offer, and we have healthy and some unhealthy options, but it depends on the kind of event. If it's like a football event, sometimes you have some unhealthy stuff, and that's okay, right? Because that is not the norm. What else do we have? We have boxing training classes. Uh, you can use our locker rooms and showers, and all the dumbbells, and as well as Group X classes. I'm also a coach for some of the classes outside. We have a big variety, whether it's yoga or cycling or boxing. We have everything. But let us get officially started. We start with my intro. I'm going to be shuffling some papers around. So my name is Dan Levin, and I am a trainer from Renaissance Club Sport. I have been there since technically before they opened. I was there with a hard hat, bringing in equipment before we opened for the big opening, and I've worked there longer than any place I ever have before, and it's been wonderful. I'm an elite trainer there. Before I was there, I was an advantage trainer at the sports club, and before that, I was a master trainer at 24 Hour Fitness. A little more info about me. Before that, I was a video game designer. So I made a bunch of video games. One of the Fallouts. Before that, I was in the military, where I actually started unofficially training people. But my job at the time in the military, I was a nuclear electronics technician on the USS George Washington. So you have a lot of different trainers around. A lot of them come up with sports and bodybuilding. I am neither of those. I didn't play sports till I got in the Navy, started playing some inline hockey. I came up with more science, just science oriented. Like for me, science is science and numbers is numbers. Some of my accomplishments at the club: I have two members who I love to bring up because they're in their 60s, and they both accomplished the same goal, which is they lost between 40 and 50 pounds of fat. What was interesting with that is they both did it kind of different. We met. One is an architect, and he's he likes a plan. He likes a plan outlined, and he will follow it to a T. His wife was part of the team that she is cooking and weighing everything, and we had a meal plan that was provided to him from our then registered dietitian, and he lost 40 to 50 pounds in a very short time. Then I have my other client, Alex. Alex, I like to call him my New Yorker, and I'm originally from New York. And a lot of people from New York, they go out to eat for just constantly. It's just very common. It's very convenient over there to go out to eat. So he doesn't really cook. He's not going to measure food. So what happened? He still accomplished his goals. He just followed the guidelines that I'm going to outline very soon. And he followed that when him and his wife would go out to eat, or they would order. And he accomplished the same goal. It took him a little longer because we didn't have the nuance there and very specific weights and ratios and everything. But he did a roundabout. And what's more important is that he did it his way. He succeeded. He's very happy. Also, there's another member who first I got in shape for the LA Kings ice crew. And then after that, got her in shape for the Chargers cheerleading squad. And she was already in great shape with a great attitude. I just tweaked her food a little bit, took her cereal away from her in the morning, made her cry, but she got over it and became a cheerleader. So it was all good in the end. So there are different ways that we could accomplish this goal. And what you got to remember is that it's a little bit different for everybody. So we're going to go over some theory. Then we're going to go over example meal plans, and then we're going to go over the different kinds of strategies depending on the person you are to succeed in your goals. So let's get started with that. So we're going to start off with eating healthy versus eating to change your body composition. And when I meet people, and the first few questions I ask, it's usually about nutrition, because nutrition is 90% of the time going to make or break your goals and if you're going to achieve it. And a lot of people just say they eat healthy. And what does that really mean? It can mean different things, like when people use it in a very common fashion, like if we're in an office, it's different than how like the Mayo Clinic would list it. Most people regard eating healthy as eating a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables, maybe eating organic stuff like that. And that stuff's nice, but it doesn't really have an effect on what we're talking about. We're going to compare that to eating to change your body composition. And that's a little more specific. That we're not going to talk about as much like micronutrients, which are important, like vitamins and minerals, but we're going to go in more into the macronutrients, the protein, the fat, the carbs. We're going to go deep into carbs. We are going to understand carbs. I don't want anyone to fear them. I don't want anyone to cut them out of their diet. I want everyone to understand why you would have them. What do you pair them with? And is timing important? And we're going to go over all that, as well as the ratio to protein, carbs, and fat. When people are telling me what they're eating, I'm really not listening if it's tasty, because honestly, I don't care. I'm not eating it. They're eating it. I trust they're eating foods they like, just like I assume they would assume I'm eating foods I like. I'm listening for the overall size. I'm listening for the ratio of protein, carbs, and fats. And I'm listening for the type of carbs that are in there and those quantities and what they are paired with. Okay, so that is very important. For calories are a little tricky. A lot of times people are expecting to get a perfect caloric number for them to just really center themselves on. And I understand that, but you all have to understand that there is no perfect number. Whether I'm giving you a number or you have a registered dietitian or we have a great nutrition coach, Larry Silvestro, these are educated guesses. And you know how we make that work is that we give you a specific amount of calories with certain ratio, and then we do measurements every 3 weeks or 4 weeks. We are not slaves to the scale. We certainly don't get on or check our body fat every day. That is just a way to build up your anxiety, and it's really not productive. And one of the reasons why I don't like doing stuff every day, and I'm going to draw a quick graph for you. So progress for your body fat, you might expect it to be just like a linear line, but the reality is it's not going to be a linear line. But as long as it goes down over time, we're succeeding. But if you're only looking maybe from like here to here, it might look like you went up or you didn't make any progress, and you're just not looking at it realistically. Life is not so simple that it always works out where it's just a straight line and everything's predictable. There's different factors involved, so which is why you don't want to drive yourself crazy with measurements all the time, and certainly don't jump on every day. It's a tool. The scale and the body fat checkers, they are not a burden, they are a tool. All right, so let's keep that in mind. Okay, so when calorie counts can go wrong, I had a client, and this was way back in the day in 24, I had a client, we'll call him Mark, and I made him a meal plan, and this dude was almost obsessive compulsive with how he would measure his calories. He would measure it to the calorie, which I don't even know how it's physically possible. But when we would do measurements every 3 weeks, I noticed that while he would weigh less, his body fat would stay the same, or maybe even creep up a little bit. So right away, I get suspicious. I'm suspicious by nature. I'm like, are you eating everything in there? And he's like, absolutely. I'm like, okay, I believe you. Are you doing any activity that we didn't previously talk about? And there was a pause, and you know, the silence was deafening. I'm like, expand on that silence. And he's like, well, aside from what I'm telling you, what I do for fitness and training with you, I'm also going to another gym and I'm running from 5 to 10 miles every day, like no days off. And my feeling on that is like, well, I'm your trainer. I'm not here to tell you to move less, especially maybe you're doing it because you just like it or reduce anxiety or you're just into running. It's all good, but I need to know that because I need to factor in those calories. So he wasn't getting enough calories. So what he thought, he was kind of gaming the system by doing a little extra, and he thought it would happen faster, and he did drop weight. But what happened is he wasn't dropping fat, he was dropping muscle. Your body will start to feed on itself if you're not getting enough calories and you're putting it through a lot of exertion. There are caloric needs, and you are going to feed on yourself. So what did we do? We added a certain amount of calories to his diet. It was like maybe like 500 calories or more. I don't remember the specific number. And then 3 weeks later, lo and behold, now his weight was staying the same, but his body fat was dropping regularly. And over time, he got to his goal. And, there was some understanding there that first we needed full transparency. We needed to not hide from each other if we were doing something. And, just to follow the program. And another thing is that your body could change over time. If you are gaining muscle or your body is just changing size, your caloric requirements might change over time. So it's important to, if you're really serious about it, to keep track, at least relatively, so you're consistent. Because the easiest thing to change in your program isn't necessarily running an extra few hours a week. It's probably just adjusting your calories. And that's the easy way to do it. And what you want is consistency. So if we have an equation here. We have fitness plus, we have resistance plus cardio plus nutrition equals goals. So if we keep the fitness and the cardio just the same, then we could just play with one. If we play with all of them, we never know which one is really having the effect, and we're really just causing confusion, and we don't know what is really helping us. So, which is why you want to standardize your program. Okay, so let's move on from that. So now I want to talk about carbs. And for carbs, we're going to break them into 3 categories. We're going to have fruits and sugar, category 1. Category 2 is going to be complex carbs, also known as starches and grains. And in that category, we're also going to put things like white potatoes and corn, because they're so starchy. We're not going to put them in the 3rd category, because the 3rd category is non-starchy vegetables. Okay, we have 3 categories, 3 carbs. They're all a little different. Let's talk about what happens when you eat them. Now, this reminds me of a story of one time I was in my office, and one of the members came up, and this member was just pretty big. There's really no other way to say it. She was very large. And she comes up and she's like, could you help me, show me what exercise could help me get rid of this big spare tire that's been plaguing me my whole life? Like, just show me something that gets rid of that. And right away, like I'm faced with a situation, because like, as far as spot reduction, there's only 2 methods of spot reduction that work. Exercise will not give you spot reduction. If you do a million crunches, your abs probably won't look much different, because you have your ab muscles, which may get affected slightly by the exercise, and you have the fat that's over the muscle that everybody sees. It's what you don't like. You have the visceral fat in there too, but we'll talk about that a little later. Let's talk about the fat right here. No matter what's going on with that muscle, if your dietary habits don't change, this fat is still there. Fat is like a jacket, right? If you want to show it, if you have a parka on and you're doing crunches, you're not going to look any better by the time you're done, because you have a parka on. Nutrition takes the parka off. Okay, so abs are made in the kitchen. They're not made in the gym. The only 2 methods of spot reduction that has been shown to work has been lipo and shark attacks. Those are your 2 options. If you don't want to do that, you better get in the kitchen or follow some of the instruction that I'm going to give later if you are not into cooking. All right, but going into, all right, so with this nurse, I'm like, well, why don't you tell me what you had for breakfast today? Like, let's go over your nutrition. And right away, I got some resistance, and I get that sometimes, especially if someone's in the medical field. This person was a nurse, and they're like, honey, I knew more nutrition than you. I took all these courses. And I'm like, well, I bow before your knowledge. Thank you very much. But why don't we just go over breakfast, and let's hear what's cooking. And she's like, well, I have a juicer. She gets very breathy. I have a juicer, and I put in every morning, I put in an apple, an orange, I put in a banana, I get some organic blueberries, some organic blackberries, a little bit of honey, I put a little bit of soy milk. And my mind is reeling when she's saying this, because I'm like, when I have fruit, when I'm on my plan throughout the day, and I'm not always on my plan, but when I am, I have no more than 3 like medium-sized pieces of fruit. Like, these are like medium-sized apples or oranges. But just for her breakfast, she's doing like at least 3 times that. And then she's wondering why she's not having any luck with her goals. And she is doing a ton of cardio, ton of resistance training. Nothing's working. Why not? Let's talk about it. So just say you have one of those medium-sized apples and you eat it. What's your body going to do? Your body's going to say, hey, look at all the sugar. Release the insulin. Insulin is a hormone. Think of it, we're going to simplify it. Think of it as a taxi cab for nutrients. The end result is your blood will have a spike in blood sugar and a spike in insulin. So I made a graph for everybody. Let's take a look. So we have time, we have insulin, and we see that the apple has a little bit of a spike there. And then we have a threshold over here. This is a threshold. And that threshold is important because if you cross that threshold, just say if you have multiple apples, or just say if you have a banana, what's the difference between eating a banana and an apple? A lot of people eat bananas. They're like, apples are healthy. They are healthy. They have a lot of vitamins and minerals. They got potassium, all that good stuff. We're not talking about that. We're going to talk about the fact there is a ton of carbs in banana. I'm not anti-banana, but I'm certainly anti-eating a giant banana or more in one sitting, because if we look at the graph, what happens is that banana busts through that threshold. Now you might be thinking, so what? What does that mean? Well, if you bust through that threshold, you enact two conditions in your body. Condition number one is your body says, look at all this sugar we have in our blood and insulin. This is rocket fuel. This is fuel that's ready to go. It is not conditional. It's ready. Fat is conditional, right? People are always coming to me, what are the conditions to burn my fat? And really the way you should look at it are, what are the conditions that you don't put fat on, which is what this is. So condition number one, you turn off fat burning. So if a banana will spike it, imagine if you had a breakfast like that lady where you had 3 times that or more throughout the day. That threshold would be through the roof. She's not going to burn fat maybe the whole day because she has so much sugar just sitting in her body. And I didn't even go through what she had for lunch or dinner. So she set herself up for failure, and she was just focusing on everything's healthy, everything's organic. And guess what? Her plan didn't work. So it comes down to not doing that. Now, what's the second condition? We already talked about the first one. The first one, we turn off fat burning. Well, for this one, I'm going to ask you all a question, and you're all muted, so you can't answer. So I am going to answer for you. Just say you're having dinner, and you had dinner, and it was delicious. Everything was great as per your plan. But then later, you have a little bit of a hankering for a snack, and you're like, and we have some assumptions here. Assumptions number one, we like all the food here. Assumption number two is that you already had dinner, so it's already late in the day and there's no more exercise. So if you have two options for a snack, and just say you open up the fridge and you have like this marbled steak that you could have some from say a fancy steakhouse earlier in the day, you already know it's delicious, right? That's option number one. Option number two is just say a big mango from Hawaii. It's fragrant, coloring is perfect. Which one should be the snack? A lot of people will say, well, the steak has a lot of fat in there and it's kind of heavy, and I want something lighter, so I would take the mango. And I would say that is a mistake. Okay, so that we already talked about why, right? Because a mango is pretty large, and you're just going to spike your insulin, and you're going to do that at night. And what happens when you do that at night? You're going to have all that blood sugar. Then you don't burn it because you're done moving for the day. You're probably just watching TV or on the computer or tucking the kids in, whatever you do. That's when condition two says, all right, well, let's take all this fuel. We can't let it sit here, and let's turn it into fat. But let's not just turn it into fat, because if all those calories are accompanied with a large insulin spike, it's going to send it to a insulin driven area. So I'm a classic guy. If I'm blowing it with carbs or with alcohol, because alcohol will also trigger an insulin spike, or even just having tremendously too many calories, that's a huge spike. Classic guy. I'm going to get it in the gut. I'm going to get it in the love handle. If I was a pit bull attacking me, I would go for the love handle. That would be the best place to get like a nice bite. That's what happened. Now, sometimes people get it in different spots. They can get it in the booty. They can get it in the arms. You know where you get it. You know where your patterns are. So you could stop doing that by spiking your insulin way past its threshold, or spiking your insulin or carbing it up when you don't have a physical activity to burn it off later, right? So these are the takeaways. Don't have sugar or fruit at night for a snack, or don't have it before a period of inactivity. And also watch how much you have together, right? You don't want to have too much fruit together like that one member did. So I like fruit. Some people try to cut fruit out of their diet because they're scared of sugar. Don't be like that. Fruit has a lot of good stuff. It's delicious, but just understand when to have it. And I'm going to use it in meal examples coming up. So that is my little thing on the first carb. Let's talk about the second carb. So the second carb is a little tricky. And let's remember, the first carb, sugar, is a simple carb, because starches and grains are complex carbs. Now, what does that mean? Now, and what are other examples of complex carbs? We could have the variety of rices out there. There's pasta. There's different kinds of grains. Now, a lot of times I try to trick people with my other question. And another question is, just say you have a dinner and your goal is to reduce your body fat. And say you have some wild caught grilled salmon, perfect. You have an array of vegetables, maybe with a tiny bit of olive oil on there or whatever, like non-sugary dressing. And you have some brown rice in the plate too. Now, is there a way to make this meal a little better for our goals? And I would say there is, because if it's dinner, I would say ditch the rice. And I'm not anti-rice by any definition, but I would say have the rice earlier in the day when you're more likely to burn it off. Because if you don't have any activities at night, what are we doing with the rice? I would just double the vegetables. And vegetables are a carb too, and we're going to get into why they're different in a little bit, and that's where fiber comes in. So double the veggies, and that's what my client Alex would do. He would go out and he would order, just say he's at Outback. He would get a steak, and he would say, I don't need the potato, but just double my veggies. Don't butter the heck out of them, and he hit his goals. All right, so it's a great way to do it. So let's remember also that if you're having a meal and it has a complex carb in it, you have to pay attention if there's fruit in there, because what do complex carbs do in your body? Think of it that they go through twice. The first time it's complex, it goes through and your body breaks it down, and it breaks it down into a simple carb. And then once it's a simple carb, what happens? Then we get that, all of a sudden we get that that insulin spike that we have to watch out on that graph. So we can cut all the fruit out of our diet and then have a whole bunch of rice and get that same big old insulin spike that keeps us from burning fat. And what a disaster, especially if it's something like, we're, oh, well, I'm eating brown rice because that, that is what you eat to get to your goals. Well, it depends. And in that case, no. And if you're pairing it with fruit and other carbs, heck no, that wouldn't be the move. So understand that rice, much like fruit, or complex carbs, much like fruit and sugar, you don't want too much at once, and you certainly want to avoid it at night if your goal is to lower your body composition. Okay, so now let's go to my third carb, which is my favorite and also the most neglected and disrespected, in my opinion, in this country, non-starchy veggies. When I look at how veggies are eaten in this country, and I've done the same, it's not like it's a holier than thou. I've done this, before I became a trainer, I didn't understand it either. Most people don't have veggies with breakfast. Since I was in the Navy, I would go overseas, and I'd always, as much as I can, take a leave or vacation when I was overseas and stay at hotels, and I'm eating their breakfast. And like, you're in the Mediterranean, there's all these like pickled veggies and all these veggie salads that are available on top of like the classic like eggs, bacon, all that stuff. When I eat breakfast in most places in the United States, you might get a little bit of spinach in an omelet, which is great, but it's not a salad. It's so small compared to like in a regular salad. And when I look at what people eat for lunch, they might have like a turkey sandwich, which means two kind of big slices of bread, probably too much carbs there already. And normally the amount of meat on a sandwich is not even, maybe it's like 2 ounces, not like a 4 or 5 ounce, serving like as what you would get if you were probably on a plan. And maybe you have like one lonely slice of lettuce and tomato on there, which also doesn't make a salad. So when I look at these two meals, the breakfast and the lunch, what are they missing? They're really missing a significant amount of fiber, right? So now if non-starchy veggies are a carb, why do they act different? What's going on with that? And what happens with insulin? What happens on the graph? Well, when we look at those other graphs that we had, what does this really symbolize? It symbolizes a huge burst of energy, but it's for a very limited amount of time, right? And then a lot of times, like when you carb it up, you can get tired after, you get hungry after. It doesn't last that long. It's very quick burning. When we have something like a salad, now all of a sudden everything's changed. Now we are very far away from that threshold. Now as far as an energy source, while it's not like an intense energy source, look how long that lasts. That's a long lasting energy source. And we're so far away from that threshold, we don't need to worry about passing that threshold and having all that issue with blowing out our insulin and then worrying about getting enough activity to work all that off, or it's going to result in more fat in the areas that we're really concerned about the most. Now, why does that happen? It happens because of math. If we convert sugar or complex carbs into a fraction, we basically have, and if everything's backwards, I apologize. If it was Leonardo da Vinci, I'd be able to write backwards, but I'm not there just yet. But if we look at it, the ratio, there is a ton of sugar in fruit and only a little bit of fiber, which results in that huge spike. If we look at the salad, it's really mostly fiber, right? Salads don't taste sweet. mostly a lot of fiber with a little bit of sugar. So it's really the fiber effect. And this is huge. And some of the takeaways from this is salad should be, we should try to have that should be one of the pillars of our meal. This shouldn't be a little lonely side salad that's only present at dinner. It shouldn't be a lonely slice of lettuce. It should be a pillar for every meal. So when you structure a meal, you should be saying, where's my protein, where's my fat, what kind of carbs am I rocking, and where's my fiber? And if you're, and which, let's move right into fiber, because fiber is so important. Fiber along with salads gets totally disrespected. When people talk about fiber, they only talk about going to the bathroom, which is true. It works in that fashion. But with this insulin limiting effect, it's huge. And just say if you, well, let me give you a scenario. My girlfriend is Vietnamese, and she will sometimes bring home dishes that kind of like Asian style dishes. So it could be, which are a lot of noodles, a lot of like meat and sauce, not a lot of salads come with it. So I'm happy she's bringing dinner. I'm not going to complain. I'm going to eat it, but I'm in a little bit of a pickle, right? Because there's no veggies and I'm all about fiber, but there's no fiber in there. What am I going to do? I'll actually use fiber supplements. A lot of times I use it's like a powder. It looks like those orange drinks. The fiber bars, I'm a little wary about. I'm a little wary about any bars, whether they're protein bars or fiber bars, because a lot of them are candy bars that they just basically add some, whether it's fiber or protein in there. So it has some stuff you want, but also has some stuff you don't want. So just be careful on picking your fiber supplements. You can get capsules, you can get stuff that mixes, but I will do a preemptive strike that I'm like, all right, so I'm eating this or what? I'm going out for pizza to meet some people. Let me do a fiber drink first. Let me do a fiber drink first because it has a great effect on, and I have a graph for this. So just say if we have food and this food is blasting through that threshold, which is undesirable. But now I add fiber to the mix. What does it look like after? Well, fiber will make it not, will kind of push it down so it's not as intense of an energy source. It will make it last longer. It'll be a longer lasting energy source. And it has us more in tune with our goals because it's keeping away from that threshold. Right? So even if you're eating stuff that isn't fibrous, add fiber to it. It is a great weapon that requires very little effort for you to help achieve your goals. And fiber also makes you feel satisfied with your food, whether you're doing a supplement or hopefully it's coming more from vegetables. Fiber takes so long to break down. Don't you hate it when you eat something and you're trying to behave and you're hungry soon after? It's fiber that helps you get through that rough time. So if you make that one of your pillars, you're only going to have an easier path ahead of you for your goals. All right, so let's move on. So let's go for some example meals. And what do they look like? People are always like, tell me exactly what to eat. And that's hard because I can't always give an exact calorie, but I'll share with you some of the meals that I had that was made by our previous RD. And just say it was breakfast. So breakfast, and I also, while I cook, I am not a good cook. I call myself a utility cook, which means I'm not looking to cook for company. I think some people would be outraged because I don't care about presentation. I also lived on an aircraft carrier and the food sucked. So everything tastes delicious to me now. So I have a little easier than some when it comes to food. But if I have a skillet and I'm going to have my eggs in the morning, I get a little avocado oil. I get the skillet ready. And then even before I add any protein or fat into there, I have these bags of like shredded salad, and a lot of it is like shredded like cabbage and like more of like the tough leafy greens and kale and stuff. And kale, when I first had it, I hated it. I felt like a billy goat. I'm chewing on it. I'm like, I don't get it. How are people eating this? Is terrible. I found out when it was shredded and mixed with other stuff, it was delightful and it's good for you. And what I liked about it also was that it seemed to last longer in the fridge than some of the other lettuces. But I would take 2 or 3 handfuls and put it in my skillet. And then I would start adding everything else. I'd put in 2 or 3 eggs. And the thing with eggs is I love eggs, but if I just have 2 or 3 eggs, I don't have a good protein to fat ratio because when you look, like fat is 9 calories per gram, protein is 4 calories per gram. So just for the eggs alone, there's too much fat for the amount of protein I have in there. So how do I correct it? I correct it that I buy egg whites in a carton and I do a big splash. So if I have 2 or 3 eggs, I have a splash of of egg whites that's really like anywhere from 3 to 5 egg whites in there. And that might sound like a lot of food, but remember that protein is only 4 calories per gram. It's the yolk that has the majority of the calories. It's 9 calories per gram. So it might sound like a lot, but understand this caloric total that I'm giving you today was probably like 2,200 calories, which was not a lot for an active male, 50 years old. When it was made for me, I was younger. Um, so uh, so when you're looking at your food, if you're eating like an egg and like 2 pieces of bread, or if you're adding egg and then you're having a piece of toast with some peanut butter on there, I would say that your ratio is probably too fat heavy. Never mind that there's no fiber in there, right? So I have my eggs in there. I got my shredded salad in there, and then I would have one little slice of bread, and then I would have like one of my medium-sized apples that I have. I have no more than 3 a day, and that would be my breakfast. And sometimes you can do substitutions, and you can do this, and it's important to know your substitutions. Sometimes maybe I wouldn't have, maybe I don't want to eat egg yolks every day, that I would just use egg whites, and my fat would be having some walnuts. So looking stuff up, I found out that if I have in my hand, it's a bunch of crushed walnuts, it's about 0.75 to 1 ounce of walnuts. And I know that's the equivalent of about 3 egg yolks. So when I saw that on my meal plan, I weighed it out on my little spring-loaded my $8 food scale, and got it, crushed it, put it in my hand, and I stare at it like I want to fight it because I'm trying to take a mental picture of how much walnuts are in there, because I cannot be bothered to weigh my walnuts every time. I'm going to use that scale at most once every year to check those walnuts and make sure that my mind isn't playing tricks on me, that I'm getting the right amount. But I would just crush it and throw in my eggs. I mean, if I could eat Thai food with peanuts and other stuff in there, I could throw some walnuts in my eggs, but I could eat anything. You just got to find what's right for you. Just say if you were to add fat and you don't like that, you could always have like egg whites and then have some peanut butter on some toast, but the right amount of peanut butter. You would have to look at the equivalent online, and that stuff is very easy to find these days, especially with the internet. So that would be my breakfast, and let's now go to the next meal. Now, what we're going to go over is it's going to be 5 meals. Now, I don't always have 5 meals. This is when I'm serious on my plan. A lot of times I'm really probably having 4. Some days I even have 3. That is not the biggest importance. What's important is, once again, getting the overall calories right and getting the right ratio of protein, fat, and carbs, right? And getting fiber in there. But let's go over meals 2 and 4 since they are the same. That would be a chicken breast. And the chicken breast would be between 5 and 6 ounces. I then would have fat, and it would be the same amount of fat as breakfast. So I'm not going to use egg yolks for that, but I could use avocado, which I could also use for breakfast. And the equivalent of avocado for that would be 3 to 4 ounces of avocado, are equal to 0.75, 1 ounce of walnuts, equal to 3 egg yolks. Now, 3 to 4 ounces of avocado is about 1/2 of a large Hass avocado. And I love me some avocado, and I will eat it. I could eat it 5 times a day as long as it fits into my plan and I'm getting the right amount of fat. Who's better than me? Right? So I would have chicken, I would have avocado. Once again, I'm throwing some handfuls of salad in there. And when I buy salad, a lot of times I have a few different packs, because that's one way I could add variety, and I'm adding very little work to the equation, just throwing in some handfuls. So I'm getting a whole bunch of fiber in there. I got my protein, I got my fat, and I have a piece of fruit, because in my 5 meals, when I'm on my plan, meal 1, meal 2, and meal 4, I have my small, medium size apple. Okay, let's go now to meals 3 and 5. They are similar and they're not identical. And the reasons we already went over, but we're going to cover it again. Say that meal 3, say now that veggies are not just getting thrown in there, but it's a pillar. I have a huge salad. And maybe now ground turkey is going to be my protein, probably the same as the chicken. It's going to be between 5 and 6 ounces. So I got the turkey on the salad. Now I have a certain amount, I can't remember off the top of my head, of olive oil. That's going to be my fat. And instead of putting vinaigrette, which sometimes I use, sometimes I put like Frank's Red Hot buffalo wing sauce on there, because now I'm eating a salad that tastes like buffalo wings, but it gets me to my goals and it tastes delicious. And I also get another bit of a starch. I get a complex carb for that meal, which means out of the 5 meals, I get a slice of bread, meal 1, and I get a slice of bread or the equivalent in rice in meal 3. After that, there's no more complex carbs for me for that day. Okay, but I get them every day. I'm not denied any carbs. I have not only an array of fiber, but also fruit and complex carbs. I'm set up. So that would be meal three. Now, meal five is similar, but it's not identical. Now, it still has the turkey. It still has all the veggies. It's, it has the olive oil, it has the fat, but I take the rice out or the bread. We already talked about why it's dinner time. I'm not going to be doing that much after dinner physically, unless I'm doing some VR boxing, which has been a thing lately. But I'm still not going to do it. I want to keep my complex carbs low. So I might add a little bit of extra, maybe a little bit of extra protein in there, or a little bit of extra fat which you could always do if you think you're going to be hungry, because fat also gives you the feeling of being satisfied with your food. And really going to fat really quick. Fat, a lot of times people don't want to eat fat because they think that dietary fat all of a sudden will just convert into regular fat, and that's not the case. Fat has, and let's even throw cholesterol in there. People look at cholesterol and fat like these evils. They are not. We need them in the body. We require them in the body. We would be in trouble without them. We make cell walls, we make hormones, a lot of good stuff with fat and cholesterol. So it's more about getting the wrong amount, and that could be too much or too little. It's a mistake to try to eliminate something fully without really understanding what the implications are. So that would be a workout day, a meal plan. Now, not everybody works out 7 days a week. I'm a trainer and I don't work out 7 days a week. There are people that are out there. God bless you. I am not one of you. But what do I do for me or for you if you are going to work out maybe 3 or 4 or 5 days a week? How do you eat the same on a non-workout day? I would say that you don't, but you shouldn't have to go through the ordeal of having to go through an entire new meal plan. What I would do is I would take the rocket fuel out. If you're not going to be doing that much activity, cut out the starches. I would cut out that bread in meal one. I'd cut out that rice in meal three, right? And then that would be the major change. And maybe I would shave a little bit off every meal, it would a total reduction of like 200 calories or something like that. Nothing major, and it shouldn't be major, and it shouldn't take you out of your game where you have to be juggling different meal plans. All right, so that is the meal plan. Now let's go over preparation, right? Because here's the thing, cooking and getting stuff ready, it could be a challenge. For myself, the first time I did it, I got, when I first became a trainer, I'm cooking all these chicken breasts, I'm high-fiving myself, I'm being objective, look at me. And then I'm trying to find Tupperware, this lid doesn't fit, this lid doesn't fit, I'm banging my head, my blood pressure starts to go up. When you are not set up for success, other options start to look more palatable. Like you're like, screw it. I don't want to go through all this. I'll just make a good choice when I get to work. Well, now everyone's going to restaurant X and I don't have my snacks or anything prepared. So now I'm extra hungry. Now I'm susceptible to things like chips and bread and ordering something that's probably not on my meal plan and probably also buttered up. And there's diminishing returns if you don't do that front end work. So for the front end work should be, first of all, be prepared. I threw out all that Tupperware and I just bought identical squares. I could switch one for the, one lid with the other. They're all fine. If I decide to cook 10 chicken breasts at once and I cut it up and I'm watching a show as I'm cutting my chicken, so I'm pleasantly distracted, I will weigh the first one. Say it's 6 ounces. I'll weigh it on a food scale. I zero out the container to the Tupperware and I do it. And then I put the food scale away and then I use that first one as a model to set up my other ones. Right. And next thing you know, I have rows of protein that's ready to go, because when it comes to a meal plan, carbs are easy. How hard is it to grab an apple? There's no work involved. Even fat's easy. Just say arbitrarily 12 almonds is how much fat you would need in a meal. Nothing stops you from buying some baggies, buying a big sack of almonds, maybe pressing the kids into work and say, hey, let's make piles, wash your hands first, get piles of 12 almonds, put each one in a little bag. And now I have carbs that's ready to go. I have fat that's ready to go, and just say you're in a rush and you're ready to work and I don't eat breakfast because I'm in a rush to go to work and blah, blah, blah. You could always slam a protein shake, have some almonds and eat an apple on the way to work. And at least you're getting your protein, carbs, and fats. You got a fiber drink to that, then that's actually not a bad breakfast. It's a little processed, but that is not bad. And it's way better than the other options that I'm hearing what people are doing. So just say if you don't want to do that, maybe you're a baller. You could use there are companies out there that you could give them your meal plan and they will get meals for you and deliver them hot, delicious, ready to go. But that could be very expensive. That could maybe not for everybody. There's another option. You can go into meal assembly, which is one of my favorites. If I work a long day at work and I talk a lot and I'm tired and I just say I used to have 7 o'clock p.m. Clients, so I'd get home at 8. I'm not in the mood to start cooking. But if I just stop we have Trader Joe's on the way home, I would pick up a pre-cooked seasoned chicken breast. I get a bag of salad, some of those little multicolor heirloom tomatoes, get some olive oil. And now I've left the realm of meal prep and I've entered the realm of meal assembly, where I can just quickly chop up the chicken, the salad, and the tomatoes and throw in the chicken on there, a little olive oil. Now I just eliminated cooking, and now it's a 2-minute prep time to get that good to go. And you can do that with a lot of meals, and that comes from being prepared. Now, how do you prepare? And I'm going to speed it up because I know we're already at 10 minutes after. Is you should get a pad of paper, and you should have your first column should be lean proteins, and use Google or use online. Don't be prisoner to how effective your memory is. There might be foods that you love that you're just not considering off the top of your head. So use the internet. Make a list of all your favorite lean proteins. Make a list of all your favorite not so lean proteins. Just say like salmon or marbled steak, and you could have that, but it just means you wouldn't add fat or add as much fat. Then you would have your list of healthy fats. Then you could have your 3 carbs, right? You could have your fruits, your complex carbs, and your non-starchy veggies. And with all that in front of you, then it's easy to figure out. Then you put your meal plan together. And whether you're cooking or assembling a meal, all your data is in front of you. You're not going to be walking up and down every aisle in the supermarket trying to figure out what looks good. It's a time waster. You're going to fall victim to advertising. You know, a lot of stuff looks good that should not be in your goal interest. So meal assembly is where it's at if you are not a cook, and it just makes life a lot easier. So what else do we have? So let's talk about sweet tooth. A lot of people say, hey, Dan, I get real hungry, you know, even after dinner, I want something sweet. What do I do? A lot of times I have some ice cream, I have some chocolate, and I have cookies, and I know they're not great for me. So what do I do? Well, I understand. I too get a sweet tooth sometimes. So what I came up with is, first of all, make sure you're hydrated, because hydration and hunger get confused in the body. I could be so thirsty at work, I could talk and all that stuff. And then I get home and then I'm on the computer, then 2 hours can go by and I realize I still haven't drank anything and I ate dinner. So make water, make drinking water part of your system. If you get up in the morning and you want coffee, have your coffee, but have it because you want coffee, you want the caffeine. Don't have it because you're thirsty. Drink a glass of water first, then have your coffee. If you're going to eat a meal, drink a glass of water first. If you go out and have drinks, I like beers. I'm former Navy. I don't want to be thirsty and say, wow, I'm so thirsty. You know what'll quench my thirst? A beer. No, beer is for fun and for hanging out, but I'm going to drink water first and hydrate. And you could be hungry, but you're really just thirsty. So what I like to do is I like to get a big glass of water, and I'll find like a protein powder that I really like, and it'll be chocolatey. And is it like a Lindt or a See's chocolate? No, but it's enough to kind of scratch that itch. I'll have that, and I'll have 1 or 2 walnut halves, because what am I getting? I'm getting protein and I'm getting fat. And as I said, dietary fat helps giving, it turns on, I can't remember the name of the hormone, but it turns on a hormone that says, hey, you're satisfied with your food, right? So go do something else. So big glass of water, protein, and walnuts. All right, so I hope that is helpful. And I think I am going to wrap it up. That's the vast majority of the info that I wanted. Now in the chat, we have an email where if you have other questions, you could send your questions and we will get to them. And I just hope you take a lot of this to heart. A lot of this, the work is really the front end work. Once you do your front end work, your path is then clear, and get out there and go succeed. Let me see if I can peek at the chat and see what we got. Okay. All right, I guess the questions are going to come in via email. So everyone, I'd like to remind everyone again that Renaissance has a fantastic facility outside. We totally took over the parking structure. We have everything very well spaced out. We have great food options for you. We are centered around your health and well-being. So come by, talk to me, talk to our nutrition coach, Larry Silvestro. We have great trainers. Our spa is great. Everybody's great. Thanks for coming, everybody. And I hope to see everyone, if not at the club, then at the next seminar. Have a great day. That's where I shuffle papers and stuff.
Yeah, I didn't see any questions come in, but if anybody's on and wants to ask a question, they can unmute themselves and ask you a question. Otherwise,
Okay. I thought we were out of time, but I am good for any and all questions.
Okay, otherwise they can send a question to the email that I included in the chat box. So if anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask a question.
Hi, I'm a vegetarian, and most of the meal plans that you gave had steak, chicken, or fish, or turkey. I don't eat any of them. So what's a good substitute? Because I mean, I try and eat like lentils and, you know, beans and stuff, but I don't think I'm getting enough.
Okay,
So what's
well,
a good substitute?
I'm very happy you asked that question, because I didn't cover, I just didn't have time to cover that during the initial presentation. I have a lot of vegetarian and vegan clients, and that's a concern. One of the biggest mistakes that I see whenever I'm hearing the meal plans from the vegans and vegetarians, there's a few different things. One, there's always a lack of protein. So it's important, once again, to get on the internet and look at vegan and vegetarian sources of protein and find ones that you like. There are also protein powders, and protein powders have come a long way. The vegetarian vegan ones used to taste like ground up chalk. Now they're great. So you should absolutely be looking at that to supplement your protein. Not that you should, I like Whole Foods a little more. I like to use supplements as supplements, not in lieu of Whole Foods. So also, one thing I see vegetarians and vegans doing is a lot of times you're not eating whole foods, and I don't know you personally, so please don't take this personally, but there are a lot of processed foods that are vegan or vegetarian, and they're not great because their macronutrient breakdown isn't really there, isn't optimal, and a lot of times there's just sugar and other stuff in there that you have to watch out. But there are sources out there, and there's so many different, there's like such an array of people, that some people eat eggs, some people don't, some people eat fish, some people don't. The best answer I can give you are the protein powders, and to get on the internet, and whether it's vegan or vegetarian or something more specific, look at their list, because their list is going to be way longer than my list, and find something that you like and that you can integrate into your plan. I hope that helps.
Yes, that did. Thank you so much. I actually add hemp seed to my smoothies, and I put water and rose water and chia seeds in a big bottle and try and drink that throughout the day as well.
That's great. And what I would say with all the chia seeds, what's important is ratios. Like I showed the fraction on like the fiber versus sugar. If someone tells me, and this is what both vegans and vegetarians do more than most, is when I say where do you get their proteins, you'll say beans or nuts or something like that, and that's okay. But in a lot of those foods, the protein as a macronutrient is not the major macronutrient. It might be fat and then protein, right? So no matter how much you add, that ratio will never be where you want it. You have to find something, other foods to add that has more protein, that you could balance everything out. So even things like seeds and nuts, it's very important to read the back. And as far as reading labels, a lot of times people don't know what has protein, what has fat. And I gave very simple options just for the seminar, that chicken is pretty much all protein chicken breast with like a little pixie dust of fat. A lot of foods are more complex. You go to something like a burrito or milk, it even depends. It's a variety of ratios. So you have to look stuff up. And even if you don't like it, all the more reason to look it up, because the more you look at it now, that's just your front end work. The more you look at it now, the more you're going to know, and you're not going to have to look it up in the future. And then you're even going to restaurants, and you could look at foods, and you're going to know approximately what's in there, and make the right choice to achieve your goals.
One more question.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Is this the same?
I'm sorry. Just real quick, I started intermittent fasting. I know that you're covering like 5 meals, but I'm doing intermittent fasting. So I'm doing the 2 meals within the 8 hours, and then 16 hours of nothing else but water. And sometimes my 8 hours is only like within 6 hours. And I do get hungry later on, but I just start drinking water just to block the appetite. What's your opinion about intermittent fasting? I've already lost close to 15 pounds since beginning of June.
Are you checking your body fat as well?
No.
Okay. And the reason why that's a concern, and I'll address your question too, is weight itself is nice, but we're not packages, we're not being shipped, right? So our weight is only important relative to our body fat, because much like my client Mark, who would drop a bunch of pounds, but his body fat would stay the same. it's kind of good to know. So I would first look for a way that you can get your body fat checked, whether it's a professional, and there's some tools are more accurate than others. The main thing, if you have your body fat checked, is consistently having the same method, hopefully with the same person or machine, doing it over time. Because if you're going from method to method, that it kind of messes with the whole number. Now, as
Right.
far as what I think about intermittent fasting, I am still learning about intermittent fasting. That would be a better question for my friend and colleague, Larry Silvestro, who is our nutrition coach. I'm hearing really good things about it. I'm hearing a lot of good things, not only as far as body fat loss and body composition change, but even things like cell walls and stomach lining, like repairing. There's a lot of good stuff. Really not my forte, and so I am not sure without more information. So that would actually be a good question for you to send to the email that's going to be listed in the chat, and we'll get that to our nutrition coach, Larry Silvestro, who is way more versed in intermittent fasting than I am.
Thank you so much. I'm going to mute mine. I think somebody else had a question. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, Deanna, I'm gonna go ahead and give a question that came into the chat. And someone asked if there's a difference between meal prep for men and women.
No. As far as I'm not sure. Like, as the meal prep, as far as like the plan itself, I mean, it comes down to more your activity, your size, your age. Like when you go to a registered dietitian, you answer a questionnaire, and that questionnaire is like, how do you feel after you do this? How do you feel after you eat? Do you get tired at this time of the day? And they have an algorithm that puts that all together, that comes up with their educated guesstimate for the calorie and the ratio. I don't know. I'm not sure of anything. I don't really treat males or females differently with meal plans. When I would generate meal plans, I treat that the same. And as far as prep, you're going to prep the same. It really comes down to what kind of prepper are you? Are you a cooker? Are you an assembler? Do you go out to eat like New Yorker style? It comes down to that. I hope that answers that question.
Any other questions that came into the chat? So if anybody else has a question they want to put in the chat, or if someone wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, I know we're over time, but if you have time and you want to ask a question, please do. Actually, someone just asked a question. Should we look at fresh salad or cooked? Actually, I can't read what it says.
Fresh versus cooked, essentially.
I think it's veggies. I think should we look at fresh salad or cooked veggies? I think is the question.
Veggie. Got it.
Okay. Well, when it comes to fresh and cooked, it depends on the food. And fresh could also be frozen. And what I mean by that is that if you get a vegetable or a fruit that's fresh, that's non-frozen, that is picked and that is stored somewhere, and then rapidly, but who knows how what the time frame is, amount of days before it comes to the shelf. And sometimes fruit is not fully it's ripening during the process. When stuff is frozen, it's picked and then flash frozen, so that time that it loses its freshness during transportation for the non-frozen food doesn't happen during frozen food. So frozen has its advantages as well. Now, as far as cooked versus non-cooked, it really depends on the food. If you were to get like for instance, like a jungle banana, not like a banana that you would buy at the store, but one like that you would go to that are in the tropics, that they look different, they're harder, you would have to cook them. Because the way I believe it works is that the heating process breaks the fiber down into something that you could process into into a starch. So that would be necessary. Some foods you have to cook so they're easily digestible. But there's a point of diminishing returns where if you are cooking and boiling veggies to the point where they lose a lot of their value, they all the fiber gets diminished. I'm pretty sure about this, not 100%. But I know that there's a degrading effect if you overcook stuff, but some stuff you have to. I mean, no one's going to eat a raw potato, right? You're going to have to cook it a little bit, but you just want to make sure it's cooked for the right amount for that type of food. But just because it's raw doesn't mean it's better. It really depends on the type of food. Hope that answers that. Any other questions, Amy?
I don't see any other questions in the chat. Does anyone else have any questions?
All right, if not, or you just can't think of it now, feel free to shoot that question to the email that's listed on the chat, and I promise we will get to it. All right, should I close it out?
Perfect. Thank you so much for attending.
Thanks, everybody, for attending, and there'll be more coming up in the future. All that will be announced also in the future. So thanks for taking time out of your day, and I can't wait to hear about some of these success stories and how this advice changed your outlook, and I'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm going to shuffle more papers.